was so scared as a kid. I was the only kid with a disability in my almost every grade. I was different, and it felt like I'm never going to figure this out. Like, I'm always going to be different. I'm always going to be weird. I'm always going to be other. And I don't feel that anymore. I am still other, but I'm good with that. I want families to feel good about who they are, who their affected child is, who they are as an affected individual, and accept all of themselves. And trust their instincts.
I would love to be able to take his CMD myself away from him. And you can't do that. It just puts a different light on the happiness and health of your kid. It definitely puts a different perspective on things.
When a child is diagnosed with a CMD, in many of these conditions, it's likely that the parents are going to outlive their child. And that's horrible. And yet, the families thrive. It may not feel to them like they're thriving at times, but they're just so impressive. And the amount of work that they do, they become their child's nurse. They become their child's expert. And they're the ones that teach us. They're the ones that tell us how to be better clinicians and better researchers. And I think that that's what continues to inspire me to move forward. And it's why every day when I wake up, I know that I need to do my best and move forward and try to push things forward, because only as a team with all of the people that are working to promote awareness and further research are we going to get anywhere. I'm just generally inspired by families every day.
Having a child with congenital muscular dystrophy has been actually beneficial for my career, because it's really grounded me where I don't think that anything I'm working on in my career is actually anywhere close to as important as being a dad to a kid with special needs. And so that I used to be very nervous when I would come and speak in front of a group of people or be getting ready for a meeting, and I don't find myself as nervous at work anymore, because I just don't think it's as big a deal as, like, I've got so much other things going on at home, and I've got other major things we're dealing with, whether it is Bella's spinal curve moving to a point where she needs surgery. Presenting to someone on a project is not a huge thing in the scheme of things.
Our stories strengthen the voice of the collective need. Right now, a lot of our members, our community, feel alone, isolated, scared, trying to figure out what they can do best for their children. By being able to share their stories with the clinicians, the researchers, the FDA, gives them a voice to help solve their problems, and hopefully leads to a lot of further advancements to solve their long-term needs.
Trying to advocate for him and have so many people tell us there's nothing we can do other than monitor him, I think has been really the hardest part. I need answers, and we just haven't really gotten any. I took him upstairs and I was just like, I'm so sorry, buddy. We just wanted to do something as a family. I'm so sorry you got sick. And he looked up at me and said, it's okay, Mommy, you can fix it. And it just killed me, because I can't fix this right now. So I just want to be able to say to him, buddy, we can fix this. I can't wait to the day that I can turn to him and say, we did it, buddy. We can try to fix this.
So I have this condition. I'm living with congenital muscular dystrophy. But the work I do for Cure CMD is not for me. It's for those that are here now, those that are younger than me, and those who are yet to come. I never think about it in terms of, hey, this might be a treatment for me. It never crosses my mind. I guess because I grew up in a time where that was not on the table. They told my mom, take her home and love her. And as long as she can live is what you have. Doctors told my mom that I was gonna die lots of times, but the penultimate statement was, you will not, the oldest living person we know with this condition is age 27. So I lived my life up until that point, feeling like, okay, life ends at 27. I'm 51 now, and life hasn't ended, and I don't know when it's gonna end. Could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now, could be 50 years from now, who knows? But there's no accounting for the tenacity of hope. There's no medical measure for that. So congenital muscular dystrophy is a group of ultra-rare conditions. Congenital meaning at or near birth, and muscular dystrophy meaning a muscle condition or muscle weakness. And when I say ultra-rare, I'm talking about, say, 2 of our smaller subtypes are probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 in a million.
These are genetic diseases. There are modifications in specific genes that lead to the development of these pathologies.
There are 5 primary subtypes of CMD, and they are the alpha-dystroglycanopathies, collagen 6, LAMA2, LMNA, and Selenon, which has only recently been called Selenon. We used to call it SEPN1. Cure CMD focuses on these 5 subtypes because they are all ultra-rare, and there are so many commonalities. The diagnostic odyssey, the symptoms, the journey, the adverse events. All of those are shared across the subtypes. Some subtypes have certain flavors, if you will, or symptoms distinct to their own. LMNA, for instance, has cardiac involvement. Many of the dystrophinopathies have cognitive impairment. Collagen 6 is probably best known for joint contractures and distal hyperlaxity. So they're definitely distinct subtypes by all means, but the commonalities are probably greater than the differences.
All of the congenital muscular dystrophies are considered, from the regulatory perspective, to be rare. Most of them are also considered to be orphan conditions or orphan diseases. But for those of us who specialize entirely in congenital muscular dystrophies, this is our bread and butter. So to us, it does not appear rare. And I think it's important for the FDA and the EMA to know that knowledge comes from experience. And so those people who are experienced caring for these children need to have a voice in the process of the development of clinical trials and coming to the advisory committee meetings. We are fortunate now, we do know the natural history of these conditions. Even though they're rare, there's an extraordinary community of academic physicians and researchers who are very collaborative in pushing forward progress.
We are at a significant crossroads right now of research, the FDA becoming aware and spending more time on rare disease, of being able to tell the story of CMD, of already having our first 2 clinical trials, of having natural history data. And so this opportunity to talk with the FDA and to make our voices heard and make this community a part of this process of patient-focused drug development is indescribable to me.
I've been working with people who are affected by neuromuscular disorders and their families for a long time now, and it has been a really exciting opportunity for me, particularly to get to know the families and understand what they're really going through in life.
The other very important pillar of this enterprise, that is the patient voice, and another tool that FDA is now providing, that is the patient-led drug development meetings. When you talk with the families what they expect from the therapies, it's I think, a very positive idea, because the regulators can now listen, or they want to listen now from the patient community, their stories. And that will help change the way we think about clinical trials, the way we think about treatment.
So by recognizing the patient voice as a very foundational step in the drug development process, we are getting there.
As more clinical trials are being developed and drug therapies are being developed, we want our story to be part of the drug development process. We want our stories to be included and know that those clinical trials and development in medicine is giving us a positive outlook, a positive hope or a passion to move forward that will open up many doors for us. I think that's the huge part of pushing for change.
We have to keep going. We can't stop. We can't say, okay, we did it once, we're good. This has to be the continual evolution of this whole process until we finish. And that patient voice at the heart of everything, so that everybody understands, every decision maker, every regulator, every researcher knows without question that they need to be working toward what the patient needs.
There's a quote that I love, which is, don't listen to the person with all the answers, listen to the person with all the questions. And that was said by Albert Einstein. The children with congenital muscular dystrophy often have immensely important questions that are also spot on. They have ideas about how they maybe could improve their condition, and they come to us with those ideas. And those are questions which we need to listen to, but also questions which we need to pose to regulatory agencies. If a child tells us that the most important thing for them is to maintain their function, isn't that enough to approve a medication? And in fact, it should be, because we know the trajectory, the natural course of these conditions, and the annual rate of decline in pulmonary function or in motor function. So if we have that annual rate of decline and we improve that, that in itself is really something that is important, is an endpoint which would show what we call efficacy of an intervention. So listening to the questions that are posed by the affected individuals and listening to the clinicians who focus on this area of clinical research is going to be essential for regulatory agencies trying to understand the patient population, trying to understand what's important to these patients, trying to understand what patient-reported outcomes are indeed sufficient to approve a medication which is most importantly safe.
When we're looking at conditions that get worse over time, any type of maintenance or stability in function is a huge win. And oftentimes, just that stability, while it may not seem very significant when you look at the numbers, it's phenomenally important and very much valued in people who are affected with CMD or their families.
I mean, the first thing that jumped into my head, just that like treatment is figuring out how to live more than anything, because for any person it's going to be different, like I don't think that there's what's going to work for me is going to work for everybody, and everybody has sort of different immediate needs. So I think treatment in my head is just about figuring out what you need to live and sort of be in the world and in the community, and having that goal met. And that can be something medical, and in our case it often is, but it can also be like home health aides, which is not necessarily a medical intervention per se, but it's something that would help me be in the world a lot more and would improve my quality of life.
I mean, if there was anything that can just keep her physical mobility, a physical ability the way it is, I think we would be super happy with it. I mean, very, very happy. It would be like hope.
I would be ecstatic just to maintain her level of ability now. What we do now as far as all the therapies and all the stretching, and that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot out of her as a kid. I know it's sometimes can be stressful on her, especially going to bed and stretching for an hour at night every night. It takes a lot out of us. My hope is that all the stuff we're doing is hopefully can maintain her level of what it is until there's a treatment that comes out that would keep her mobile, keep her able to at least walk around.
That belief is what keeps us going. That's what we have to do, to just buy us time until they find this treatment.
Hi, I'm Marty. I'm 4 years old. I like to go outside, jig on the gins, and do everything I can do. I do the Mario Kart, and I play with toys, and that's everything.
With the progressive nature of Marty's condition, an ideal treatment would be something that halts any further progression.
We don't necessarily need to see him get up and walk. We don't necessarily need to see him run around and do all that, albeit that would be amazing. The best we can hope for, and a really big win for us, would just to be maintain his function as his body grows. To be able to hold himself up and sit upright, and to be able to move his joystick on his chair to get himself around. Just not losing those functions would be the really big win.
We have noticed changes, some quicker than others, some slow, some that we don't really realize until we go to the doctor and they ask us questions. But it is important that if something were to help her, we can help her sooner rather than later, because what she can do right now, she might not be able to do tomorrow or next week or in a year. The nature of this disease is to progress, and so time is kind of the essence in a way.
With Bella, we've found that she's aged out of some therapies.
I used to ride horses, but now I'm getting weaker and my muscles are getting weaker and I can't split my legs very far anymore, so I'm not doing that anymore.
Instead of, having the golden egg being the cure, really something that would just help keep Bella where she's at right now so things don't get harder for her, to maintain the strength that she has right now where she can hold her water bottle herself. That would be the best thing that we could ever see happening at this point in our lives, like for her to be able to continue to do what she does and what she loves.
The ideal treatment for our daughter would be to help fix her contractures, to give her a little bit more mobility within her arms and legs, and be able to loosen up her tendons.
I would like to not have my contractures get that much worse. There's part of me that's like, if they get much worse, I'm not gonna be able to do anything. Like on my computer or whatever, or like playing hockey or driving my wheelchair, using my table even, not being able to feed myself. I can still do that, but I can't really use a spoon anymore because I don't really have the wrist strength to keep it straight as I lift it up to my mouth. And I would like to be able to use a fork still. There are just a lot of things like that that you don't necessarily think about in the day-to-day that I would really like to hold on to as I get older and am living my life.
For an individual affected with CMD, even a tiny little change may have a huge impact on their quality of life. And oftentimes things that we can't measure in clinical trials, for example, the movement of a finger, that one finger can then allow them to move their wheelchair, can allow them to communicate, can allow them to have a social life online. And if they lose that finger movement, their ability to engage with the outside world significantly decreases. That's really important to affected individuals.
I think it's very true. I definitely connect to the world through the internet more than probably most people do, just because using technology is crucial. It helped me get a job, helps me maintain friendships, helps me organize hockey meetings and stuff like that. I can't live without it, I guess, is my point. So it's crucial that I'm able to use a keyboard the way that I do. Something I've been doing recently, I bought a new mouse that has all these button mappings on where the thumb is. so that I don't have to constantly be moving around and pressing different keys. I can just press the button with my thumb. So, you know, it's important that I'm able to keep using those kind of technologies.
I'm pretty functional with where I am right now in terms of my wrist contractures and my arms. But again, there's always that fear that I have in the back of my head that like they're going to get worse. And I would like to not have to worry about that and not have to be second guessing myself all the time, so I can sort of just live my life.
One of our researchers, I think he'd been around for 20 years in the space, and he said, I thought the goal was a cure. I thought my job was to find a cure. And now you're telling me that all he wants is his contractures, his wrist contractures fixed? The very next grant cycle we did a grant call for, he submitted a project on joint contractures in Luke's subtype. I mean, that's the patient voice at work. If there's no better evidence of it, and that's what I'm continually trying to strive for every day.
I have an individual I met in the UK who I encouraged to come to a meeting with scientists, researchers, and actually a biopharma company to speak about her condition. And she told me afterwards that experience made her realize she had a very big voice and a role to play and could help others. And then after that experience, she became the chair of MD Talk for the UK.
Everything we do is the voice of the affected individual. From funding research to finding researchers who are affected themselves and funding their projects. We are incredibly fortunate to currently be funding 2 affected individuals who are also researchers. One diagnosed herself, and one has been working in one of the leading labs in the world. Both of them bring such a beautiful synergy between the research world and the affected world. They bring a realism. It's not just blind hope. It's not stab in the dark. Like, they have actual targets that they find meaningful to them as an affected individual. And so to me, that is the most beautiful intersection of research and patient voice.
Especially with the congenital muscular dystrophies, there is a big spectrum because there is not only one gene. We are talking about different subtypes caused by mutations in different genes. We have to think about different modalities of therapies to try to cover the majority of the patients. Of course, we want to cover all the patients, but let's start at least for one.
Yeah, even Bella and her friend Marty, they have the same affected condition, but they are differently affected by that condition. Like you might pick Marty up differently than you pick up Bella because he's a little bit weaker at his age than Bella was, or they just have a little bit different body type. And so we go and see Cassie and Marty and the whole family, and we want to be able to help him, but sometimes we have to help him differently than we might help our own daughter who's got that same condition.
When it comes to looking at outcomes, I think that our journey has never been the same or something that people are really familiar with from the get-go. So measuring the outcomes based on a different child is not something that I think will be beneficial in our specific case. They're trying to put all the kids in one box, and as we can see, Bella and her friend Marty with the same condition are affected so drastically different that these measuring tools can't be used across the board.
The other family members and their dynamics and what they have came across in their milestones and pushing forward and how they got themselves involved with the community or putting themselves out there in general, telling their stories, their testimony. It's not just medicine, it's a complex
daily living.
A daily living, like you can't put it into a formula, you can't put it into a chart. What we do every day is a hard tell, and nobody else can like truly lock it down with the exception of other families.
One of the things that I took away from being part of a clinical research study in CMD is that it's really important to get families involved early in the planning process to determine if a clinical trial is going to work in this population. For example, when we're looking at pharmacokinetics or the way that the body metabolizes a medication, one of the things that's really important is to make sure that everybody has the same amount of food or the same type of food in their stomach when they take the medication, because it may take an individual with CMD a long time to finish a meal. For example, it could take an hour or it could take 2 hours to finish what we would think would be a rather simple meal. We needed to take that into account when planning the clinical trial. And so it became very clear to us that we needed to make sure that we were doing something and listening to families to figure out how we could make this work for our study. A lot of kids have a hard time getting all of their nutrition orally, and so they are supplemented with G-tube feeds, or they're fed exclusively through G-tube feeds, and making sure that we're taking into account how those kids can participate in clinical trials is also going to be extremely important.
He eats 3 times a day. He eats
overnight, a morning feed.
Yeah, morning, and then when he gets home from school, all of his medicine goes in through the G-tube.
And that's like 3 times a day, and there's probably 5 different medications, all addressing some extent of his congenital muscular dystrophy.
Finn isn't just a picky eater, right? So there's the 2-year-old, I don't want to eat it because all I want to eat is pizza. And then there's Finn. He really always had eating issues from birth.
His CMD impacts his muscles everywhere, and with Selenon, swallowing doughy foods and things like that is just something they don't enjoy. So then once you learn that, it makes sense of why he had so many problems as an infant eating.
It's horrible.
It has not ever changed.
Other things like subtle movements so that somebody could reposition themselves in bed independently, or even just make mild adjustments, because if an individual isn't able to adjust themselves in bed independently, then that means that their caretakers or their parents are waking up multiple times per night. And that's not something that has been historically measured. The impact that small changes are making on a family.
We probably go in there on average 2 to 4 times a night when Bella is sleeping to help her roll over. And when she was younger, she was able to roll over on her own. Whether or not she slept through the night, it wasn't us going in there to move her body to make her more comfortable. It was for a drink of water or something like that. Now we're in there 2 to 4 times on average, sometimes upwards of 10 times a night, depending on what's going on, if she's sick or something like that, just to move her body into a comfortable position, because she's not able to roll on her own anymore like she used to be able to.
We sleep with a monitor next to our bed. Jess and I typically trade who has the monitor each night, so that we may or may not get better sleep if we don't have the monitor right next to our head. And then Bella will call out, and we'll either hear her moaning, or she'll actually call out to us and say, "Hey, Mum, Dad, like, can you come in?" And we'll go down there and figure out what she needs.
It's not just about her being able to roll on her own for comfort. It's also to make sure that she's safe and that she's breathing and that she isn't developing contractures one way or the other because she's stuck in one position, or bed sores, or any other problem that can arise from being in one position for too long.
The circulation in my feet has always sort of been not great, mostly just because I'm sitting in a wheelchair all day. So by the end of the day, my feet end up pretty kind of swollen and purpley. Over the last couple of years, we've heard a little bit more from other members of the community that have gone through similar issues. Some more severe than mine, some less.
It's hard, or you spend 6 hours or 2 o'clock and 3 in the morning over a cough because he can't breathe. It's got to be held up, he's got to be patted. Or what's your bedtime routine? How do you brush your teeth? Like, how do you turn your head and comb it? Or how do you change a light bulb? Like, I guess some people might find it invasive. Some people might find I don't want to know, because that might put me in an emotional turmoil. Like, man, I'm living a good life. I have it better than I thought I did.
At the heart, all of these things are, what is the patient voice and what do they need? And that changes over time. That's not going to be the same year to year, and we're going to find out, oh, there's a major gap here that we're realizing that is causing kids to maybe go to the hospital more than they should be. Let's fill that hole.
I had the opportunity in London to go through charts of patients that might have succumbed to respiratory infection and recognize, wow, if the field as a whole had been recognizing we could be much more proactive about care and not wait until we have an ICU admission for pneumonia to start non-invasive ventilation. And so if we start pulmonary function testing by age 5 years and we follow that carefully and we start the cough assist proactively and use that daily, and if we start non-invasive ventilation in the form of BiPAP and use that very carefully, we shouldn't have any hospitalizations.
I also am a bit of an evangelist for non-invasive ventilation, which is what you're seeing right now. Basically without it, I would get headaches every day and have to nap for 2 hours after school because I couldn't take any deep breaths, and I haven't had a nap in like 10 years because I can just sort of breathe consistently on my own. For me, I think any sort of respiratory support that people have is going to help them, whether it be BiPAP or the SIP ventilation, which is what I have. I think that those two things are things that has a dramatic improvement on people's quality of life.
When I'm looking at medications that are approved for use in other neuromuscular disorders, and we look at what outcome measures are required by the insurance companies or what outcome measures were used in the clinical trials, some of those outcomes are not applicable to members of the CMD community. I think that we need to have more flexibility in determining our outcome measures to figure out what's really important to the affected individuals and to their families, because something that's important to a regulator or to somebody who's not affected with these conditions may be entirely inappropriate for someone who is affected. For example, fatigue and an individual's fatigability.
I graduated from college with a degree in computer science, and then I found a job doing clinical technology development, software development. The most difficult part of working full-time is just the energy, maintaining how I feel throughout the day. Sometimes it can be really challenging to work a full 8-hour day in a row, so it takes a lot of breaks or just kind of patience with how my body's feeling. One of the biggest reasons that I work from home is because I'm able to use my BiPAP machine. And that kind of helps me regulate how I'm feeling during the day. So if I'm starting to feel low energy, then I can throw that thing on and it kind of helps me get through the day. I haven't had an issue where I can't get through a full week yet, so that's a good thing.
One of the things that stood out that we noticed really early on was the axial weakness and fatigue. So specifically around his ability to get up. When he can get up, how difficult the struggle that he has to even stand up. You see it in his day-to-day activity, honestly. He goes to PT, but PT is more of like trying to teach him life's things, right? Like Finn can't bend over to put on his socks because I describe his neck and his head kind of like an anchor, right? As soon as it goes down hard. So like the bending over motion or reflexes, really, his reflexes, I feel in that sense are a little delayed. I mean, he just goes straight on his face. There's nothing protecting him except for his head. He goes right down. And we're not talking like little teeny tiny falls. We're talking like major falls on his face, black and blue. I mean, he was at the ER, what, 3 weeks ago or so? Because he had 2 within a week. We try to balance each other on like, how far do we push him? Should we make him go up the stairs and we see he's struggling? Is that a good struggle? Or is that a bad struggle? Because he's fiercely independent and I'm so proud of him for that. He tries so hard.
The value from learning from families is to actually see what people go through on a day-to-day basis. When we talk about a contracture in an arm, what does that really mean? How does that impact somebody's day-to-day routine? When they see somebody falling and stumbling, how does that play out? Why is the individual not able to catch their balance? They get a chance to see the community members in their work environments that are thriving in their careers, but still have to deal with struggles throughout the day.
Oftentimes, families of children who are newly diagnosed talk about cure, and I like to always focus on care, because to me, the word care and the word cure are the same word, just one letter different and equally important. And until we have a treatment that can affect the clinical course of the condition, we have to optimize care and focus on care. And that's really holistic care. It's not just the clinic visit, but asking them when they come in, like, how are things going? Having that sense of really tuning into, like, where is this person? Are they scared? Are they anxious? It's okay to be anxious.
I'm definitely a little bit, like, concerned and scared. I think it's more rooted in the specifics than in any sort of, like, existential, like, oh my goodness, I have this disease. You know, in the absence of, you know, this hypothetical treatment that we're talking about, there's absolutely nothing I can do about it, one way or the other. So I can't really get rid of the fear. I can just try to, like, do things in addition to it and try to have other experiences and live my life as best I can while also being afraid.
If I can show young parents of newly diagnosed kids, this is a great and terrible life, but that you need to continue to have expectations that this kid is going to grow up, have an incredible life. That's my place in this organization. My job is also to make sure that their voices are what pushes us. I need them to tell me what we should be doing. Where should we be spending our money? Where do you need us to provide you with support? And that's going to change, right? As the generations come, the next generation is going to have a totally different take on this, and that's how it should be. And we need to continue to adapt.
I think we're at a pivotal point for the entire field of researchers and clinicians and for regulatory agencies to say, hey, we've had some successes, but hey, we've had some failures. We have to get up from those failures and say, we have to make it better, and we can make it better. And what went wrong? What exactly went wrong? To roll up our sleeves and say something did go wrong. And also to push for transparency across the board between companies that are developing these therapies. The benefit for the children with congenital muscular dystrophy is the field is rapidly advancing and improving these therapies. And so, in a sense, we'll be able to offer affected individuals therapies that have been what we call next generation therapies, that we've improved upon the prior iteration. And so we continue that iterative process, making sure that we make it as safe as possible, because there's not a lot of room here. There's no room for failure, really. And so when it happens, it's devastating for the field. But I think, in a way, we have to ensure that we don't stop, that we go forward, we take that devastation and then translate it into energy and devotion to making these therapies safe and pushing them forward.
We're doing everything we can, but that doesn't change the fact that we need help, and we need help now.
We want Finn's story and the Cure CMD community story to rise to the top. None of us should have to work this hard to be seen or heard. We're funding, we're here, and as best as we can, we're supporting our children, our families, and we want to be included in that conversation. Treatment is possible. It's just, when is someone going to stop and say, it's your turn? And we want our turn to be now.
There's only so much we can do without support from the medical community.
I think we should really move forward as quickly as possible, just for the sake of everyday counting.
He needs to be here. He's got a purpose, and he's going to do something amazing with his life.
To anyone who's dedicated their time and their resources to helping kids like Marty, we thank you. This is our family, this is our child, and he is an incredible human, and I know there's many more out there like him.
Thank you for listening to my story, and I would really like people to know about this, because I would really like something to help me get over with this, because I really wish I can do things that I can. But I'm really glad that I can read, and I'm getting better, and I can listen and stuff like that.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our story. Thank you for doing what you do on a daily basis, organizing, informing, and growing the community that is us, that we didn't have the ability to do so, and you connecting the dots, putting us in this position. Thank you for including us. Thank you for sympathizing with us and understanding what we're doing and progression, the innovation of technology and medicine. I think everyone that has taken their time and energy to put into this.
We are always in gratitude of the people that are looking out for us as a community and for Bella specifically, trying to give her a better life and offer that chance to be who she wants to be and continue living the life that she is living right now and what she knows. And we are thankful for the people who are fighting for her and who are taking the risks to try to help a small community like ours and Bella's.
I feel very connected with the community. I feel very connected when they talk to me. As a personal experience, I know what is living in a family with a disability, and especially I feel this bond with the brothers and sisters of the affected individual, because I was in that position myself. I always think about that the CMD affects the whole family, and having a sibling with a disability, it changed your life. I remember one thing from my sister, that she was always telling me that she wanted to contribute to science, to research, that anything that physicians or scientists could learn from her, she was willing to participate. She wanted to participate, and I think many of these kids with CMDs, I see the same spirit. And they want to contribute to solve the problem, not only for them, but also for other families in the future.
Elle and I both have discussed that any type of clinical trial that come out, we want to be part of.
We would love the opportunity to enroll Marty in a clinical trial. We would love to see new opportunities. We would love to see opportunities that have good progress in the mouse model, be able to go to the next stages for them. We would love the opportunity to literally try anything.
Sometimes my friends are like, I don't think you can play gymnastics because you can't really do cartwheels, or you can't really do downward dog, or you can't do what we're doing. And I'm like, I can try my best. I can play if I want to. You don't want me to play, I will go and play somewhere else. And you cannot show me where I can play and where I cannot.
I chose this work. I chose to be in this field. For the vast majority of the time, these families have not chosen this. They didn't know what they were getting into when they had a child who was diagnosed with a congenital muscular dystrophy. And the families inspire me so much every day because of their strength, their resiliency, their determination, their drive. All sorts of families are just, they're what make me move forward. And affected individuals who take their condition and while it's part of who they are, they don't necessarily let it define them. And they go out and they change the world.
I'm grateful for everybody who knows the word CMD. I'm grateful for the researchers. I'm grateful for our expert clinicians who have spent blood, sweat, and tears to get us where we are today. But I am most grateful for our families who trust me when I tell them this is what we need to do. This is the path we need to take. And they hear me and they trust me and they're with me. And that's humbling. And so I appreciate them more than I can ever say.